Today's Framelines video is brought to you by Framelines Magazine, a way to enjoy street photography outside of social media. Find inspiration from our features and interviews with the best photographers in the genre. Use code YouTube10 for 10% off your first order.
This bloody cat. Why? I'm trying to make a YouTube video, mate. Do you want to be in a YouTube video? I think as a photographer, it can be very hard for your work to stand out. More people are taking photographs than ever. How do you carve out your own voice, your own signature style, your own signature look? It's something I've thought about a lot over the years. And if I try and think of contemporary photographers who have their own recognizable look or mood or feel to their photographs, Teresa Freitas' work always springs to mind. In this video, I was lucky to be able to get some time with her, sit down and have quite a high quality internet conversation. You'll see, it's not just a Zoom. We've got some nice quality in this one. But yeah, I managed to get some time with Teresa. We sat down, we talked about her influences, how she came to develop her style, her thoughts and feelings and her approach to photography in general. And it became really apparent that her look and mood and feel to her photographs is a reflection of her own personality and her own life. And I found talking to her really motivating, really inspiring. Yeah, generally quite uplifting, and I'm hoping you guys do as well. So without too much more rambling, please do enjoy my chat with Teresa Freitas. And if you did enjoy it, please do think about leaving a like or a comment, or maybe even subscribing.
I've been a big fan of your work for years. Like, I see it and it kind of like straddle lots of different styles and genres and it's its own thing. How would you best describe your own style of photography?
Yeah, that's always the hardest one. I definitely struggle with this action of defining my style or my work because I feel like once you define it, you kind of limit it to that definition. That's why I'm usually very ambiguous and or say in a broad sense that first of all I'm a color photographer and right away I kind of discard photographing in black and white, at least for now, because color has always been at the core of what I enjoy making. Although I'm saying this and the first images from my first camera were all in black and white film for like 2 years. But then, we moved to what my pictures are showing and it's also very attached to color and how color can impact composition and subject and place, how it can help a scene that's captured shift from reality into something that's a little bit odd and quirky and fictional, I guess.
You don't want to like pigeonhole yourself and be like, this is what I do. But also, you do have a very distinct style. So it's tricky. I get it.
It is. It wasn't really a very, conscious decision or pursuit. I didn't really feel a need to stand out in a way. I just felt I needed to find, that absolute joy when creating something. And I wasn't quite there yet when I started taking pictures and what I was doing with photography at the time. And, photography allows for so much, the different possibilities of creating an image. Your place in it is not really immediate, I guess, and it can shift through time. But for me, it was very easy to fall in love with the process of taking pictures in the streets and wandering around and finding things and a constant spontaneity of being surprised by the world around you. And then that you're able to document that yourself with your body and your camera. But, it just naturally developed into something more. It wasn't just really the process of photographing that I found joy in. It was taking the picture and then what do I do with it next? That's where I kind of fell in love with editing and working with color. The time I spent just, testing, exploring, moving switches around in Lightroom, and that was really fun for me. And eventually it led into something that surprised me and I guess distinguishes me in some way.
I think we've spoken about it before about, there's more people taking photos than ever and you need some way to define who you are. Your own brand as a photographer in a way is sort of like this extra sort of like sprinkling on top, like, hey, this is what makes it me. Like, I can't really see any of your photographs where they don't look like your photographs. Like me, if you scroll back through my Instagram, I've just left everything up. I've left my whole progression from like shooting like really bad JPEGs. Was there like a defining point where you were messing around in Lightroom one day or Capture One and you were like, this is me. This is the way I want my pictures to look from now on?
Yeah, that kind of happened for sure. I think I'm not sure if it was like a specific minute of, but I just traveled to San Francisco. I think it was like 2017. I'm not sure. And I started traveling because of Instagram and the opportunities it gave me to work with brands and just do another type of work that wasn't just so personal. But I had the opportunity for the first time to be a tourist with a camera. I hadn't traveled much before then. And you're kind of in awe how a different city looks and feels, which was a little bit silly at the same time because it was very similar to Lisbon. And I say it's silly because I kind of only realized I enjoyed shooting color in the street so much from that point on. But it was a big turning point for me when I started editing those pictures and realizing that I've always been attracted to color and thinking about how I could incorporate it in my photographs. Being aware of that, having that consciousness, what I captured, and then just editing into something. Some people say it's completely different. I think it's slightly different, but it does have a strong impact in terms of color. It was kind of a eureka moment, and I figured out that I needed to start working on that influence of color in photographs, and it just developed from there. And then it was just a long period of experimenting and really just just making everything a little bit more pristine and just intentional how I wanted it to look.
You're quite like generous with your knowledge as well. I've seen you do lots of tutorials on how to achieve your look. You did a Domestika course. You've worked with like a Lightroom. Me personally, for a long time I was very protective. I was like, I don't want anybody to know how I do this. Did you have that as well, or were you always like, yeah, if you want to learn, I'll teach you?
Yeah, actually, I think that was kind of natural to me. I'm not sure exactly why, but I'm very comfortable in sharing knowledge, I guess, because I'm also very appreciative and very thankful when other people that I look up to or that I like their styles or work share knowledge with me. So it was always a kind of empathy thing. I just, I think from a very young age, I've always been kind of following that Confucius thing of do to others what you want others to do to you, and it's just natural to me, I guess, to share that. I'm not very protective of it. I do try to share knowledge in a way that you don't have to mimic exactly what I do, but here's how I've managed to discover and develop it, and maybe you can do that too and discover something new for you. But it's not always the case, of course. You have the risks there, but I think the advantages kind of compensate for the risks.
You're never going to take the same photos, though, are you? So I think.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think so. At least, I mean, I would be curious to see me and you, Josh, in photographing at the same time in the same place, because not that we match so much in subject, but I think we are attracted to kind of the same things in a place, although I do distance myself from a scene more than you do, I guess. You have a more street photography look to your images, I guess, but then in the end, I'd be curious to see how that would, how we would match somehow.
I don't know. I'm stepping back more and more these days, so maybe I don't get very close to people, and I'm quite slow. Like I've been using a GFX. I think you use a GFX. You know what we should do is go out and shoot black and white.
Yeah, that would be different for us. Yeah, I think, yeah, that would be not only different in subject. I think we would have the very different approaches because I did start in black and white with portraiture. That's my first, just the first impact I had in photography. I was in fine arts college. I was in a painting degree. Then I changed, and yeah, it's just evolved to something completely different. And I never gone back, but I kind of don't want to.
In terms of like creating your own style, would you say that it's primarily just trying trial and error over a long period of time, working out what you like and don't like? Has that been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I I knew, well, I didn't know there. It was kind of an unconscious feeling, but it did, led me to hear that I wanted to work with color. And the reason I say this, I guess, because my influences, from a very young age had to do with painting and cinema and animation rather than photography. And the thing that really drew me to these things was always color. And in cinema and animation, it started from Disney and the work of Hayao Miyazaki for Studio Ghibli. Just the drawings and the colors were extraordinarily beautiful and just brought this real feel-good sensation that I appreciated as a kid, growing up, and all the complexity that it brings. There is a meaning in the tones that are used, but that helps to shape the feeling that we get, or the feeling they want us to get. And then cinema and cinematography, I mean, it has been a continuous influence with the same idea behind it, the crucial role of color in affecting the scene, and how can it be used to detach it from reality and create something more fictional. And then painting, and it started with Van Gogh, but he learned everything he could about color and color theory and harmony, and the way he searched for the most powerful contrast effect he could have in his paintings. I think it all brought me here. The idea that I wanted to use color and explore the impact it had on subject, on composition, on place, and how to create work that was slightly more fictional, also had this painterly quality to it. But yeah, it's I don't think it's a decision from a single point that twists your work and shifts it into something different. I just think it developed through time, but it came from an early age.
You talk about it wanting to look fictional. Does anybody ever say oh, this isn't what the real world looks like? And you're like, yeah, of course, I know. I don't want it to look like the real world. I want it to look a bit. It's my own take on the world, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, exactly. I think that's something I got a lot from Luigi Gihi's work, and I was happy when I found that meeting point, because it's it's weird, because people ask me, like, what type of photography do you do, and some people say I'm more of a street photographer, or some say I take pictures of architecture, and others more of a commercial photographer. And I just, it the quirkiness of human behavior, and I think that's something you photograph too, just how we connect, how people connect to a place, and just cultural peculiarities, and a little bit of irony and humor that exists in the image, and that attracts me a lot. But then, because I want to, how do you say, like, I want to explore the gap that exists between reality and, like, I think it's called like the second degree reality, which is to say, like, between reality and photographs. Photographs are images that are constructed, and you can make this characteristic of a photograph less or more evident. And for me, it just speaks a lot more to me and makes it much more of my own if I'm transforming these photographs into something that, further distance themselves from reality. It's just what I enjoy doing. There's not a particular reason. It's just what gives me more joy, I guess.
Are you now able to sort of like pre-visualize what a picture will look like? You'll know in your head, like, once I've edited it to look how I want to look, this is gonna look great.
Yeah, yeah, I get it's gonna look great. Yeah, I see the potential of an image. I'm not sure if it's going to look great. I think, I think you do feel when you get the image, like, oh yeah, this is going to work really well. But I'm often surprised of how color work can change the image to something else, rather than what I was expecting it to. So it's not like I imagine the image or what I'm seeing in the viewfinder, and I see it through a pastel filter. It's not that. That's not what happens. I just know, I guess, from experience and just practice and having been doing this for years, I just kind of recognize the type of tones and tonalities that real colors will then transform themselves when I get into them.
Do you have specific, like me personally, I'm like, I look for like a nice green. There's a shade of green I like. There's a shade of red I like. Do you have a specific, like maybe a sort of like pale blue, and you're like, oh yeah, that's gonna work?
Yeah, I mean, I do have specific tones that I prefer, but they don't often come that easy. So I guess my only condition is that it's sunny. I hate colors and over cast days, and that just doesn't work for me. That it's sunny, there's some contrast between light and shadow, because although I remove that contrast, it's very interesting if it exists in the first place. So I do like to have control over everything, and I don't mind if the red isn't particularly more into the orange, which is normally nicer to our eyes, but I'm going to change it into what I do like. And that's kind of the fun of it for me. It's really working with the colors that exist. I'm not really looking for specific colors. It's more like conditions and of the scene and the weather, really.
Talking about, yeah, the way you remove the contrast from a quite high contrast scene, you make the image quite flat, but you kind of
Yeah.
manage to not have a color cast too much in the shadows, or you manage to, I don't know how you do it. You keep the tones very even across the contrast. It's I should probably
Yeah,
I'll
I
take
mean,
I should take one of your tutorials. Sorry.
no, I mean, it's thank you. It's I'm not sure. I think it's just it, I've been studying color theory and harmony and color balance and color accents for a long time now, and I think it helps. Although I feel I'm more of an intuitive or instinct type of photographer, the fact that I know the technicality behind it makes it easier to trust my instinct, and it flows very natural to me when I'm editing or when I'm photographing, to get to where I want, because I've been developing my taste and what I like and what I don't like, what I want, what I don't want, for so long that it now becomes easy to me, and it's not something that I am aware of, I guess. I mean, how I do it, it's not that it's a mystery for me. I just don't think about it anymore at all.
Is it also affect other aspects of your life, like how you decorate your home, or I don't, is it is it like this?
Sorry, what? Sorry, it's
I,
cut. Oh, I don't
oh
know why
no,
it's cutting.
can you, is it
Is
okay
it
now?
effect?
Like other
Yeah,
aspects of your
it
life, like
is.
how you decorate your home, how you choose where you want to travel. Is it like, it kind of seems to be like who you are as a person, really?
It does, yeah. I let it in a little bit too much, maybe, but yes. um, Now I can show you my house right now because I'm kind of in the middle of construction work. But I mean, you get into this house and you immediately feel like you're in one of my images. Not that I don't like, using other types of color schemes or palettes. It's just more comfortable to me to be in this kind of environment. And for travels, definitely. I mean, you probably wouldn't see me in like a Soviet neighborhood in Russia. I mean, it's just not the style that I'm looking for. There are particular architectural elements and the way that cities are designed and the vibrancy that you get on the streets of certain cities that's much more attractive to me. Having said that, of course, there are places I'm not that fully aware of how they are and how do people live in them, and maybe it's something that I'd be surprised by. So I'm always open to. I always say that my favorite place is where I've never been, because I kind of want that feeling of surprise, but I have to plan them. So
Just a very quick break and jumping in here to say that if you are enjoying this interview with Teresa and you're looking for more places to find motivation and inspiration for your photography, We have a print magazine called Framelines Magazine. We have a Framelines Community with a private Discord and regular street assignments. And we also have some Lightroom presets available as well. So if you want to head to frame-lines.com to check out what we have available. Framelines is run by just two people, myself and Shane Taylor. And if you enjoy what we do and would like to support us, please do check out frame-lines.com. You get to travel quite a lot for work and commissions. And how do you approach, say you have like a week in a new place or 2 weeks? Are you just like, I'm going to walk around and be instinctive, and if I see something, or do you go out with maybe an idea of what you want to get in that space of time? How do you work when you've got a set time period?
Yeah, it depends on why I'm there and why I'm traveling there. But if I do have the opportunity to just wander around and find things that I'm attracted to, that's great. I just leave really early in the morning, as soon as the sun gets up, and just spend the whole day walking. And I do have some, pinpoints on a map that I want to check out, but I do allow myself to get a bit lost and just wander around. And I tend to, if I'm on the main street, I tend to go to its perpendiculars and just move away from where it's more busy or where it's more touristy, I guess, and just try and find a little bit of local life. I guess that's always the most interesting part for photographers to explore normally. So yeah, I mean, sometimes I don't even have a week. I have like 3-4 days. And it's a matter of not focusing too much on the images that could have been, or that I'm not going to be having the time to photograph very planned, or having the time to wait around and see if something interesting pops up. I just keep moving normally. Yeah.
Your recent pictures you've been sharing, I feel like you're including more and more people. Is that, do you find you're
Yes.
like consuming more street photography at the moment? Is that influencing this choice?
I think the place and the camera influence a lot of like how I approach photography, and it has been developing into having more more people in my images, because I've kind of did the distant, silent, flat 2D kind of illustrated images already. And that's something I always look for. But you evolve, and you kind of gain a new maturity on things, and it's always more interesting when there's a person in the place, because it gives a sense of scale of life, of humanity, even if it's not a portrait, which is something I'm not really looking for in the traditional sense, because I'm not looking for like a strong charge of emotion. It's just, it helps give a sense of place, and people make the place. So for me, it's the last images that you're talking about, I think Paris, right? And
Yep. Yeah.
for me, Paris is not a particularly colorful city in terms of architecture or its buildings. So I have to look for color elsewhere, and I usually go to gardens or city parks that usually have more color present in it, and they have color because it's how people usually interact with the world. Someone chose to put this type of flowers in this place. Someone chose to wear a red hat today. Someone chose to sorry. So it's about the choices that we make with the world around us, and that's something I'm very keen on capturing. Yeah, it really depends on the whole mood of the place I'm shooting, I guess.
You mentioned gear a little bit. We don't like to talk too much about gear in these interviews, but I think when we featured some of your photos in Framelines magazine, Shane and I actually had a quick peep at the EXIF data on your images, because we were like, oh, so one of this is from a Canon 6D, and some of these are GFX, And we're like, but they look the color grade looks identical. It's the same. Like, yeah. So there's that battle, especially if you're constantly changing like I am, trying to keep them looking consistent. But yeah, I mean, you're so good at that. Like, you could not tell. And when we saw you using a Canon 6D, we were like, "What?" We thought they were all from your G, GFX. Maybe that more just says that gear is just it's all the same. It's all just a scam. Maybe that's what it comes down to.
It is really. No, yeah, I agree. No, everything is doable, but of course, some cameras are easier to work with others, and you say that in terms of consistency with different images from different cameras, but I'm not like you. I haven't been switching around every month or so. I had it for 10 years, and then this is
Yeah.
my new camera, so I had to relearn it a little bit. And
Mm.
how can I get? But like I mentioned before, because I became good, or at least better at recognizing color very easily, and like this blue is it more towards the green side, for example, or is it more towards the purple side? And I recognize that very easily, and that makes me it makes it easier when I'm editing color and I'm switching around the hue, saturation, luminance layers. I already know where I want the blue to go, so I know what to do with it. But it did take a little bit of time to make it all the more consistent, of course.
Is it fair to say that most of your initial work, professional work commissions, came via Instagram?
Oh yeah, it's completely fair and 100% true. I mentioned that I was taking black and white film in college, developing personal conceptual projects. And Instagram really opened the door for me in terms of exploring photography. And, I was just taking pictures with my phone at first around Lisbon, taking pictures of facades. Then I started to take a little bit of portraits, kind of surreal portraits with juxtaposition and kind of crazy mobile creative editing. And then eventually move into a camera. And when I got my first camera, the Canon 60, that's when I kind of realized, oh, this is really fun to work in terms of color and what I can do with it. So yeah, Instagram kind of made me be a photographer, because that wasn't really in my plans. I was taking multimedia art at the time, a degree in fine arts college, and then moved to design and new media. So my plan was to be a multimedia designer, whatever that means. But photography wasn't really in my future. And Instagram just, it's really good to find and discover that you have potential in photography, because it does excite you to take more photographs, or it did, at least in the beginning. And yeah, all of my commercial work opportunities came from Instagram. And I started to travel because of Instagram, because of a collaboration I had with Netflix. I think that was the first one. And it just opened a lot of doors that I never thought of opening.
How has your relationship with it changed over the years? Do you use it as much as you used to? Do you enjoy using it as much as you used to?
I think you know the answer to that question.
Just,
I
just
mean,
curious.
yeah. Anyone that I've been around Instagram since it began, so 2011. I didn't post at first. I was just looking at pictures. And then I started, I think like early 2012, that's when I started posting, and it was great. It was really exciting. People were super nice. It was a great community. We had a very nice niche in Portugal. Everyone kind of knew each other. It was really fun, and it was really just about the fun of photography, and sharing that fun with others. The joy you got from photographing. It wasn't really technical. It wasn't really serious, I guess. And of course, with brands, it started to be more serious for me, but it opened a lot of opportunities and made me the photographer that I am today. So I'm very thankful for that. But it's been a while. It's been too long, I think, and in terms of posting and sharing and expecting something or to get something from it that maybe you don't get anymore. It's it's not it's not really very fun, I guess, anymore. For me, it's it has its moments. I still really enjoy looking at other people's work there and discovering new photographers, and it is still a very important source of livelihood for me. It's how I managed to keep being a photographer, so I kind of need to stay in there. But if I had another source of income, I don't think I'd be around that much anymore.
Last night I posted a photo about 10 o'clock and I was just refreshing the light count for about 10 minutes. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Deleted the picture and just went to bed. Last year you put together a publication with Setanta Books, one of their bi-monthly, which I have, but I've also been renovating my house and I don't know where it is currently. Everything's in boxes. How did you find that process of sequencing your work and working with it in print as well? Do you get to print your work very much?
I get to print it for print and for people who buy them. It's always very fun, but I don't think there's anything like the feeling of seeing your work in a book form. And of course, individual pictures for me, they kind of should, or it's great when they stand on their own and have their own place. But then putting images together coherently is a different challenge and a very good one. The way that you can create a narrative from one image to the next of apparent images that you've kind of gathered throughout the years, and that may not have an apparent connection because sometimes you photograph a lot of dogs throughout the year, so you do have an apparent subject there, for example. That's for me, it's a lot fun when you're sequencing images, not just by subject, but by different qualities and aspects of them. So matching the next image with the previous one through a composition technique or a shape or a detail in color. It's fun, and it's a great exercise to get to know your body of work and where that takes you, like what stories you can create with it when it wasn't really your specific intention to create that story. Something that comes after when you sit with your images. And I think that's the power of book and bookmaking, publishing that exists. With Setanta, it was a little bit easier because first I wasn't the one doing the editing process of putting the images together. We just knew that because my work is so strongly related to color that I had this very simple idea of mine of going through the color spectrum starting with red and adding in violet or indigo and just moving through red and then orange. Actually it was red and then pink and then orange and yellow, green, blue, etc. And then I just made a very broad selection of my work through color, so by color. And filter it through that sense. And then they put together a very, very nice object of just pairing images together in a way that could then, when viewed as a whole, could feel a little bit like you're going through the different tones of the rainbow. So it was a really, really nice moment. And I hope to do it again now with maybe a narrative that's more evident rather than just focusing on color.
Final question. Final question. Final question. Say someone's just getting into photography now and they're looking at your work and being like, how can I have my own brand of images? How can I have my own signature look? Would you have like one piece of advice you would give to them?
It's always really strange to feel like you're in a position to give advice to someone, but For me, the most essential advice is always, all you can do is keep working and stick to what feels right, and kind of forget about the rest. I had a lot of moments in my photography journey where it just didn't fit with the standards that existed at the time, and that was, I think, luckily I grew up in the sense of that I have the maturity to kind of distance myself from those standards, and just, I feel alive when I'm taking images. It's the joy that it brings. It feels natural. It feels thrilling. And, just recognizing what it is about taking photographs that makes you that happy, and how can you really identify what brings you joy is just spending time with your work and spending time outside or inside or wherever you like to photograph, and then look at your images and sit on them. I mean, I think this is an universal advice that kind of almost every photographer gives, to just spend the most amount of time you can with it. All the free time that you get, if you're serious about figuring out how to become a photographer, is to be a photographer and go out and take images. It's, in terms of a specific language, it's, for me, it was very important to define how my taste developed throughout the years since a young age. So what are the influences and inspirations that you have outside of photography? Or if it's just photography that you're looking at, identify why you're inspired by them, and what is it that you want to replicate in your work, what type of feeling or what type of look or mood that you want to get in your images. So yeah, just look at what other people are doing, trying to identify what you like in it, what you want to bring to your images, and just spend the time figuring out how to do it.
You say that's quite like common advice, but I think amongst thinking about gear, trying to look, getting maybe in your head about what other people are doing, I think it's just really important to be reminded of that. So yeah, I'm really glad you said that. It was super, super fun. Thank you very, very much.
Cool. No, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I'm glad we could make it finally.